The annual family financial review meeting was supposed to be routine. Mom had instituted these gatherings 3 years ago after Dad's retirement, claiming they promoted family financial transparency and mutual support. What they actually promoted was judgment, comparison, and unsolicited advice from relatives who barely managed their own budgets. This year's meeting carried extra significance because my sister Rachel had just finished her MBA at Northwestern's Kellogg School of Management. She'd been dropping hints about her newfound expertise for months, suggesting that the family could benefit from professional-grade portfolio optimization strategies. Today, Mom announced proudly as we gathered around the dining room table, Rachel would present on investment diversification and risk management. She's identified several opportunities for family wealth enhancement, Mom said, beaming. Dad beamed too, 27 years old and already thinking like a financial advisor. We're so proud of her analytical capabilities. My younger brother Marcus, fresh out of college and working his first entry-level marketing job, nodded approvingly. Rachel's always been the smart one with money, he said. Remember how she turned that work-study job into a profitable tutoring business? The tutoring business had indeed been successful, though Rachel had conveniently forgotten to mention she didn't report most of the cash payments on her taxes. But family mythology rarely concerned itself with such details. Sarah, Mom continued, turning to me with her characteristic look of gentle disappointment, Rachel's reviewed everyone's financial situations. She has some suggestions for improving your investment approach. I kept my expression calm while I did the mental arithmetic. My investment account wasn't what the family believed it to be. The $2.1 million portfolio they admired wasn't the result of lucky stock picks or inheritance. It was a carefully structured federal asset, established to maintain my cover as a financial crimes enforcement network special agent working deep undercover. For the past 18 months I'd been investigating a sophisticated international money laundering operation that moved more than $500 million a year through legitimate investment structures. My cover identity as a freelance financial consultant explained my flexible schedule and apparent investment success, while the protected federal assets provided credibility with criminal targets who performed thorough background checks. Rachel's identified several inefficiencies in your portfolio allocation, Dad said enthusiastically. She can help optimize your returns while reducing unnecessary risk exposure. Rachel smiled and spread printouts across the table with practiced authority. Sarah, I've analyzed your investment statements from the past 6 months. Your asset allocation strategy lacks sophistication and ignores fundamental risk management principles. Really? I replied mildly. Absolutely. You're overweight in government securities and defense contractor stocks, she continued. Those selections show a conservative bias that's limiting your growth potential. What Rachel didn't understand was that those conservative selections were specifically mandated federal instruments designed to maintain my cover and protect classified operations. The defense contractor positions provided a plausible explanation for my knowledge of international sanctions enforcement. The government securities supported my cover story's risk profile. I've prepared a comprehensive reallocation proposal, Rachel announced, producing a bound presentation folder. Shifting 60% of your assets into emerging market funds and technology growth stocks will dramatically improve your annual returns. Mom clapped. Rachel worked on this analysis for weeks. She's really thinking about family success. The current portfolio shows textbook signs of unsophisticated management, Rachel explained with academic authority. Conservative selections might feel safe, but they actually increase long-term risk through inflation exposure and opportunity cost. Marcus leaned forward, interested. What kind of returns improvement are we talking about? Conservative estimates suggest 15 to 20% annual gains versus Sarah's current 7% average, Rachel said confidently. Over 10 years, that difference nearly doubles the portfolio value. The mathematical projections were impressive and completely irrelevant. Federal asset protection protocols didn't permit optimization for personal returns. Every investment decision required approval from Treasury Department supervisors responsible for operational security. Those calculations assume market conditions remain favorable for growth investments, I said carefully. Market timing concerns reflect outdated investment psychology, Rachel dismissed immediately. Modern portfolio theory demonstrates that diversified growth strategies outperform conservative approaches across all economic cycles. Dad nodded approvingly. Rachel's academic training gives her analytical advantages that emotional decision-making can't match. Exactly, Rachel continued. Sarah, your investment choices reflect emotional attachment to perceived safety rather than mathematical optimization for wealth accumulation. Her psychological assessment was both accurate and irrelevant. My emotional attachment wasn't to the money, it was to maintaining operational security. Explaining federal asset protection requirements would compromise 18 months of careful undercover work. What specifically do you recommend? I asked. Complete portfolio restructuring, Rachel declared. I've prepared transfer documents that will move your assets into professionally managed funds selected according to modern diversification principles. Mom beamed at Rachel's thoroughness. She's thought of everything. Even the paperwork is ready. The transition can happen immediately, Rachel added, producing a stack of forms. I've already established the target accounts and verified the transfer procedures. We can do it today. I studied the paperwork with apparent interest while recognizing the federal crime being proposed. Unauthorized transfers of protected assets carried criminal penalties ranging from 10 to 25 years, depending on the amounts involved and the potential security compromise. These are very thorough, I observed. Northwestern's finance program emphasizes practical application. Rachel replied proudly, theory without implementation is worthless in real financial management. How did you access my account information for the analysis? I asked conversationally. Your laptop was open last weekend during the family barbecue, she said matter-of-factly. I took screenshots of your statements while you were helping Dad with the grill. Basic due diligence for any financial restructuring. The casual admission represented multiple federal violations. Unauthorized access to protected financial systems triggered automatic alerts monitored by Treasury Department security protocols. The screenshots Rachel mentioned had already been flagged by federal surveillance algorithms. That was initiative-driven, I said. Marcus nodded approvingly. Rachel's always been proactive about family improvement opportunities. Rachel spread more printouts across the table. These screenshots revealed concerning patterns, she said. Sarah, your investment selections suggest a risk-aversion psychology that's creating long-term vulnerability, excessive exposure to government bonds and defense stocks. These sectors show limited growth potential compared with technology and emerging markets. What she called risk aversion was my operational security. The government bonds provided legitimate income that explained my lifestyle. The defense positions supported my cover story's professional background. I see your concern, I said diplomatically. What's more, Rachel added enthusiastically, I've identified implementation strategies that minimize tax implications while maximizing growth. The transfer documents include tax loss harvesting provisions that will improve your current year returns. Dad clapped her shoulder. This kind of sophisticated thinking is exactly why we invested in her MBA education. Mom agreed. Sarah, you should feel grateful that someone with professional training is willing to help optimize your investments. The family consensus was touching and legally irrelevant. Federal asset protection systems operated independently of family financial planning, MBA credentials, or optimization theories. When would you like to execute the transfers? I asked. Today if possible, Rachel replied immediately. Emerging technology funds are currently undervalued. Delaying implementation costs money. I have all the authorization documents ready. I examined the documents with professional interest. Rachel had indeed prepared comprehensive transfer paperwork, comprehensive enough to constitute prima facie evidence of premeditated federal financial crimes. This is very detailed work, I observed. MBA programs emphasize thorough preparation, Rachel said proudly. What Rachel hadn't anticipated was that Treasury Department algorithms monitored protected accounts for precisely these kinds of unauthorized access patterns. The screenshots, the analysis, and the prepared transfer documents had triggered multiple federal alert systems. Dad, what do you think about Rachel's recommendations? I asked. Brilliant financial strategy, Dad declared immediately. Rachel understands investment principles that most professionals never master. Sarah, You'd be foolish not to accept this kind of expert guidance. The MBA curriculum included advanced courses in family wealth management, Rachel added. I specifically studied strategies for optimizing related party investment coordination. Mom nodded approvingly. Rachel's education benefits the entire family. We're so fortunate to have professional-level expertise available for family financial decisions. Marcus, do you have thoughts about a portfolio restructuring? I continued. Rachel knows way more about finance than I do, Marcus replied without hesitation. If she says these changes will improve returns, I believe her academic analysis over emotional decision-making. The family consensus was remarkably unanimous and completely irrelevant to federal asset protection protocols. Rachel, I said carefully, have you considered that some investment accounts might carry special restrictions or monitoring requirements? All investment accounts are subject to standard SEC oversight, Rachel dismissed confidently. Nothing in your portfolio suggests unusual regulatory constraints. These are basic publicly traded securities. Her confidence was impressive and wrong. My portfolio's mundane appearance had been deliberately engineered to avoid attention while satisfying federal protection requirements that extended far beyond normal SEC oversight. What if there were additional regulatory considerations? I asked, posing a hypothesis Rachel immediately challenged. You're a freelance financial consultant, not a government employee or an insider trading target. Standard investment rules apply. I suppose you're right, I said, more to keep the peace than because I agreed. Dad smiled approvingly. Sarah, accepting Rachel's guidance demonstrates real family loyalty. Too often, pride prevents people from benefiting from superior expertise. Exactly, Rachel agreed. Emotional attachment to current investments reflects psychological biases that professional training helps identify and overcome. When you put it that way, I said, reaching for the documents, your recommendations make perfect sense. Rachel beamed as I examined the transfer authorizations. Northwestern's program emphasizes implementation speed as a key factor in successful wealth management. Markets reward decisive action. These documents authorize complete portfolio liquidation and reallocation according to your specifications. So everything transfers into professionally managed growth funds selected according to modern portfolio theory? I asked. Absolutely. And you're confident this approach will optimize returns while managing risk? I pressed. Academic research consistently demonstrates the superiority of diversified growth strategies over conservative approaches, Rachel replied with MBA certainty. Well then, I said, setting the documents down and signing. I suppose we'll see how modern portfolio theory handles federal asset protection violations. What do you mean? Rachel asked, her confidence faltering. Rachel, I said, those screenshots you took last weekend triggered automatic alerts in Treasury Department monitoring systems. Her smile evaporated. The investment account you want to restructure isn't your personal portfolio, I continued. It's a protected federal asset, maintaining my cover identity. The dining room went completely silent. You're what? Mom whispered. I'm a special agent with the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, I said. I've been working undercover for 18 months, investigating international money laundering operations. The investment portfolio you've analyzed is a federal asset designed to maintain my cover while protecting classified operations. Dad's face drained of color. Sarah, that's not possible. You're a freelance financial consultant. That's my cover identity, I said. My actual job involves infiltrating criminal organizations that move hundreds of millions in illegal proceeds through legitimate investment structures. Rachel stared at the transfer documents in horror. But these are just standard investment accounts. No, I said. Those are protected federal assets monitored by Treasury Department security systems. Your unauthorized access, analysis, and preparation of transfer documents constitute multiple federal crimes. Oh my God, Marcus breathed. The screenshots you took triggered alerts monitored by federal agents. The transfer documents you prepared provide evidence of premeditated financial crimes. Your MBA credentials won't help when Treasury investigators review your actions. Rachel's hands began to shake as she looked at the paperwork. I didn't know. We never would have. Federal asset protection systems don't recognize family exceptions or academic credentials, I said calmly. Unauthorized access is unauthorized access regardless of intentions. Mom started to cry softly. Sarah, can you explain to them that this was a misunderstanding? Mom, I said, I'm an undercover federal agent whose operational security has potentially been compromised by Rachel's actions. My personal feelings don't override national security protocols. Dad protested. And Rachel committed federal crimes that could compromise investigations targeting international criminal organizations. Family relationships don't supersede Treasury Department security requirements. Rachel looked nauseated. What kind of penalties are we talking about? Computer fraud, identity theft, and violations of federal asset protection statutes, I answered. Potentially 10 to 25 years, depending on prosecution decisions and security damage assessments. 25 years? Rachel whispered, the words heavy in the quiet room. Federal sentencing guidelines don't consider MBA credentials or family relationships as mitigating factors, I said. The dining room remained silent except for Mom's quiet sobs. Finally, Dad said, what happens now? Treasury investigators will review Rachel's actions and determine appropriate criminal charges, I replied. The comprehensive documentation she prepared will serve as evidence of premeditated criminal intent. Can you help her? Can you explain that this was family financial planning? Mom pleaded. Mom, I said, I'm sworn to protect national security assets from unauthorized access. Those obligations don't have family exceptions. Rachel stared at the transfer documents with growing horror. What if I withdraw the transfer documents? What if we pretend this never happened? Rachel, I said, Treasury Department algorithms already flagged your activities. Federal investigators are probably reviewing your case right now. The screenshots, the analysis, the transfer preparation, everything is documented in federal monitoring systems. You can't withdraw evidence that's already been collected. Dad stood up abruptly. I'm calling our lawyer. Call Attorney General Patricia Morrison's office instead, I said. Tell them you need federal criminal defense for asset protection violations. Family lawyers won't have the relevant experience for Treasury Department prosecutions. Asset protection violations? Dad repeated numbly. The reality of what had happened settled over him like a cold wave. Rachel began to cry. My whole life is over. Northwestern MBA and I'm going to federal prison for financial crimes. You prepared documents to steal $2 million in protected federal assets after conducting unauthorized surveillance of Treasury Department operations, I said. Federal prosecutors evaluate criminal actions, not good intentions. The evidence demonstrates sophisticated financial crimes regardless of your motivations. Marcus looked confused and anxious. Sarah, are you really a federal agent? Yes, Marcus. I've been investigating money laundering operations while maintaining a cover identity as a freelance financial consultant. Why didn't you tell us? Dad asked. Because undercover operations require compartmentalization, even from family, I answered. We're so proud of you, Mom said through her tears. Thank you. Pride doesn't eliminate the criminal charges Rachel faces, I said. Federal prosecutors will make charging decisions based on security assessments and criminal evidence. My secure phone buzzed with an incoming message. I glanced at the screen and saw the alert I expected. Asset protection breach detected. Report to headquarters immediately for a security debriefing. I have to go, I announced, standing from the table. Where? Mom asked frantically. Treasury Department headquarters. My cover's been compromised, so I need reassignment to non-undercover operations. Sarah, wait. Rachel called desperately. Can't you at least try to help me? I faced my family one last time. Rachel, you used unauthorized access to surveil federal operations, then prepared documents to steal protected assets. Those are serious crimes regardless of our relationship. I'm your sister, but I'm also a Treasury agent sworn to protect national security. Those obligations don't have sister exceptions. Federal investigators will contact you within 48 hours. Cooperate completely and hope your lack of criminal history influences the prosecutor's charging decisions. What should we do? Dad asked, voice breaking. Call the attorney I mentioned, I said. Don't discuss this situation with anyone else. Understand that family loyalty doesn't supersede federal law. I gathered my things and headed for the door, leaving behind 18 months of careful cover maintenance, and a family that finally understood why I'd always been so calm about money. Rachel's MBA had indeed taught her modern portfolio theory. The lesson she'd learned that night, about federal asset protection violations, would prove far more costly. Justice operates independently of academic credentials, family relationships, and good intentions. Treasury Department agents follow security protocols regardless of personal cost. The annual Family Financial Review had achieved unprecedented transparency. After all, some truths aren't meant to stay in the family.